بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, we'll continue our Ramadan prep series of Khatiras. We'll also continue of the discussion that we had last Tuesday. One of the questions that came up, I will first address that and then continue inshallah, is the fasting after the 15th of Sha'ban. There's a hadith that I mentioned, إِذَا انْتَصَفَ شَعْبَانَ فَلَا تَصُومُوا. Most of the scholars say that the hadith is been negated or cancelled by the other ahadith, the numerous ahadith that we have that mentions about the Prophet ﷺ fasting the month of Sha'ban the most after Ramadan. So he would fast, sometimes he will fast and fast and fast every single day, as if it would assume it would be, people will think that he fasted the entire month, right? And sometimes he will not fast the entire month except for the few days that he fasts on a regular basis for every month. So it is okay to fast after the 15th of Sha'ban, but some of the scholars say that if a person was not fasting and suddenly on the 15th of Sha'ban wants to fast and the days after, that would be somewhat disliked. However, if someone wants to fast the entire month of Sha'ban, no problem. If you want to fast the 15th from the 3 days of Sha'ban, that would be recommended. And there's a virtue of fasting the 3 days, which will fall, inshallah, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So 15th of Sha'ban night is Monday night. Monday night. The Laylatul Thulutha. The night that follows Tuesday. All right. So let's look at some of the ahadith that I mentioned the other night. It is mentioned from about at least 10 Sahaba narrate ahadith regarding the virtue of the ninth, the Laylatul Nisf min Sha'ban, the night of 15th of Sha'ban, as well as many of the Tabi'een and the Taba Tabi'een. So the Khayrul Qurun, we will look at some of the Khayrul Qurun, what they have to say about it. So one of the hadith that mentioned before, from Ali radiallahu anhu, إذا كان ليلة نصف شعبان فقوموا ليلها وصوموا نهارها فإن الله تعالى ينزل, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that night, his countenance descends at the sunset, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls out, is there anyone who wants to seek my forgiveness? ألا من مستغفر فأغفر له. Anyone who seeks my forgiveness and I will forgive. ألا من مسترزق فأرزقه. Is there anyone who wants to seek sustenance, rizq, where we all are so eager to, spend so much time? Allah is calling out. Anybody wants? ألا مبتلا فأعافيه. Is anyone who is suffering anything, physically, mentally, spiritually, فَأُعَافِيَ, I will put them in a state of well-being, give them afiyah. أَلَا كَذَا أَلَا كَذَا, meaning that Allah is calling out anything that you want to ask, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give until the sun rises or the break of dawn. Aisha radiallahu anha narrates that one night she couldn't find the Prophet ﷺ in her bed, meaning that in the middle of the night he left and she was searching for the Prophet ﷺ, and she found him in Al-Baqi al-Gharqad, the cemetery of Medina, and the Prophet ﷺ was raising his head to the sky, meaning he was making dua. So he said, Ya Rasulullah, the Prophet ﷺ says, were you afraid that I will cheat you? Meaning that the Prophet ﷺ had many wives, and did you think that I was going to go to someone else, one of my other wives? And she, then the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His countenance descends on the 15th night of Sha'ban, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives on this night the equivalent of the hair that is on the sheep or the livestock of Kalb. Kalb was a tribe that they were known to have the most livestock, from sheep, goats, and other animals. So, meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives so many people, and this hadith is narrated by Imam Ahmad, Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah. Another hadith from Ibn Majah, from the hadith of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiyallahu anhu, also one of the great Sahaba. إن الله لا يطلع ليلة النصف من شعبان فيغفر لجميع خلقه إلا لمشرك أو مشاحن. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gazes upon the people on the 15th night of Sha'ban, and He forgives all of His creation except for the one who associates or holds grudges in his heart. Shahna has multiple meanings. Shahna meaning having grudge against someone, or kind of having a bad feeling towards other people, pious people, good people, other people, any people, right? It's Shahna. Imam Ahmad narrates the hadith from Abdullah bin Amr radiallahu anhu, that the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَطَّلِعُ إِلَىٰ خَلْقِ لَيْسَ مِنْ شَعْبَانَ فَيُغْفَرُ لِعِبَادِهِ إِلَّا اثْنَيْنِ مُشَاحٍ أَوْ قَاتِلِ نَفْسٍ. That Allah, again, the same hadith, here it says mushahin, a person who holds grudge against other people, and qatilu nafs, the one who commits suicide, who kills himself. Uthman ibn Abil As narrates a hadith that when there's a 15th of Sha'ban, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls out, is there anyone who will seek forgiveness, and I will give. Anyone who is asking something, I will give, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give, except for a fornicator or a person who associates with God, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ali radiallahu anhu would go out on the 15th night of Sha'ban, and he will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a special dua, the dua of Dawood. Allahumma rabba Dawood. It's a long dua, but I'll just mention the last part. اغفر لمن دعاك في هذه الليلة ولمن استغفرك فيها. That, oh Allah, I seek supplication with the supplication of whatever Dawood alayhi salam, the prophet who asks you, and those who have sought your forgiveness. From the tabi'een, many of the tabi'un from the people of Sham, from the Ahl Sham, Khalid bin Ma'dan, Makhul, one of the great tabi'een, the great mufassir, Luqman ibn Amir, and others have mentioned the fadila, and they would do a lot of ibadah on this night. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, he wrote to his leaders and rulers, and one ruler in particular of Basra, he said that make sure that you take care of 4 nights. Make sure that you take special concern for the 4 nights. Number 1, the first night of Rajab, already passed, the night of 15th night of Sha'ban, and the Laylatul Fitr, meaning the night that follows the Eid day, and Laylatul Adha, the night that follows Eid al-Adha. Because the Fajr of Eid al-Adha has no night. The night is counted to is on its own. Discussion for another time. Imam al-Shafi'i, he would say, he add another night, and he said the 4 nights that I mentioned. Anybody remember? أول ليلة رجب, Sha'ban, the both nights of Eidain. The 5th night, Laylatul Jum'ah, tonight. So we have the Fadila, Imam al-Shafi'i. radiallahu anhu. Ka'b al-Ahbar, a great tabi'i, mashallah, from Yemen, he was one of those who accepted Islam, and he had knowledge of the previous scriptures. So he would narrate a lot of Isra'iliyat. حدثوا عن بني إسرائيل ولا حرج. So we can narrate from the Isra'iliyat. So he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down Jibreel alayhi salam on the 15th of Sha'ban, and he orders Jannah to be beautified. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets free so many people, the equivalent of the numbers of stars, and the numbers of the days, and the number of the leaves on the tree. There are still, in many places, it's still summer. And so all the leaves on the tree, عدد ورق الأشجار وزينة الجبال, and the weight of the mountain, and the equivalent to the number of dust. That's a lot of people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives on that night. Ata ibn Yasar, again, also another great tabi'i, faqih, he says, there's no night more virtuous after Ramadan, right? Especially Laylatul Qadr. After that, it will be Layla Nisf min Sha'ban, the night, the 15th of Sha'ban. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is counted and descends to the first sky, and He forgives His servants, all of them, except for a mushrik, mushahin, qati rahim. A person who associates with God, a person who holds grudges, and a person who cuts ties among his kin. So he says that the one who's been freed from the fire of Jahannam on that night, congratulations, hani and luck. And the person who's been cast away from Allah's forgiveness, jabar Allahu musibat. May Allah take care of your, replace your difficulty. It's a great musibah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forgive. Now we see that there's three major things that is mentioned in the hadith, that is mentioned in the ayah. وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَدْعُونَ مَعَ اللَّهِ إِلَهًا آخَرَ وَلَا يَقْتُلُونَ النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ وَلَا يَزْنُونَ. Right? So those three things that is mentioned in the hadith, right? The shirk is the greatest, and then qatl al-nafs is also one of them, killing oneself, and fornication is one of the great sins. And then the fourth thing that is mentioned in the hadith, to kind of conclude, shahna, grudges. A person who can sleep in a night and forgive everyone and not hold grudge against anyone else, that person Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives. تفتح أبواب الجنة يوم الاثنين والخميس. The Mondays and Thursdays, the doors of Jannah is open, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives all of His servants except the person who doesn't associate, the one who associates with God, and the person who has grudge against his brother. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, hold back, wait. He's not mardud, he's not casted away. انظروا هذين حتى يصطلحا. Let them figure out their affairs. Allah. So I'll close with this beautiful hadith. Anas radiallahu anhu narrates from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that there was a person who came into the masjid, and before he came into the masjid, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that there's a person who's going to enter. He's from the people of the heaven, from the people of Jannah. And that person came in, nobody knew him. And Abdullah ibn Amr radiallahu anhu, he followed him into his house, became his guest, waited, tried, tested, looked, searched, let's see what he does, something very special. But he didn't see anything special about him. He didn't see him doing anything very special, except that he did whatever an average person would do. And then after 3 days that he couldn't figure out, then he asked him, what do you do? Right? He said, I can't think of anything except that every night before I go to sleep, I make sure that I don't have anything against anyone. That's one thing. And he said that's the thing that has earned you the glad tiding bashara from the Prophet ﷺ that you are the people from the Jannah. So inshallah, on these special days and nights, we want to make sure that we are asking forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Allah is calling out and is asking and He's looking and He's searching for the people who ask forgiveness. So we ask forgiveness from all the great sins and also from all the minor sins, and from the sins that are apparent and also from the hidden sins. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all of us, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept us and increase us in our rizq. There's also a verse in the Quran, I'll close with this verse, because it's important to mention. Ikrimah, radiallahu anhu, he, in his tafsir, because he's also one of the great students of the greatest mufassirun from the Sahaba, Ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhu, from the Tabi'een. So, according to his tafsir, that Surah Dukhan, right? فيها يفرق كل أمر حكيم. It's نصف ليلة من شعبان. But it's an isolated tafsir. The Jumhur Mufassirun say that is about Laylat al-Qadr, when the Quran was revealed. But that also adds to the virtue of the نصف ليلة من شعبان. No. We could. We talked about the qiyam, the jama'ah. We can if you want to. But if you want to do your own ibadah, your own individual salah, you could do that, inshallah. But we're not planning to announce a jama'ah, a qiyam on Monday night. But if a few people want to stay back after Isha Salat while they're here, we can add two or four rakats, inshallah. Inshallah, if Ahmad Yaqub can provide us dinner, inshallah. So, you can fast on Tuesday. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Ayyam al-Bid. And you can fast after that as well if you want to. Especially if you have any makeups, or if you want to keep up with your wife, she's fasting and you want to fast with her, Bismillah. You can do that, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
بقية الأحاديث. لازم تسيبه حديث